How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Liberty Hour, streaming through Spreaker Studio, the 16 Jackson AJ1 Twitter account, and the A2 Jack YouTube channel. I'm back with my friend Cameron. We're starting to talk about BYU's honor code, and I just read a little bit of a piece on it in the Chronicle of Higher Education. This came out last year, so things probably have changed a bit. Before I get your thoughts on that, what's right, what's wrong, what's changed, what I will say is I do have an issue of cases of sexual misconduct or assault allegations if one party is intoxicated, because then I don't think people under being intoxicated can really have the capability of making correct decisions. So in those cases, I don't know. I think it should be a case-by-case basis if something is considered assault or not, because at the time, if a person says yes or, they're more down because they're more tipsy, and then they come back and regret it later on, how is that really assault if at the time they were okay with it, even though they were under the influence of alcohol? So I understand that the difficulties in that conversation and the issue, but in terms of the honor code in general and what I just read, Cameron, what is right, what is wrong, and what has changed?
Okay, so first of all, with the Salt Lake Tribune, I'm really not a fan of the Salt Lake Tribune because they honestly, every article they come out with about BYU, they just try to destroy BYU. Just, I don't know why, but they have something against it. First of all, on rape, if there is a guy that honestly does, like you were saying, there are situations in which it has to be analyzed case by case, but in the majority of cases, if there is a guy that rapes a woman, I think that the dude should be castrated or put in prison. I had no respect for those guys. I would love to just beat the crap out of any one of those guys. No respect for that. Seriously. And I think that 100% of the kids at BYU would agree with that, right? So I honestly think that there's a huge, I think BYU is so much better with this than almost any other university in the United States, right? I think just because of how the atmosphere is at BYU, right? I know that for the last 20 years, BYU has been number one for the stone cold most sober university. And I love that because I think that solves a lot of those problems, right? There's not a lot of alcohol on any BYU campus, which I think prevents so many of these cases from happening. So when it does happen, again, with this situation with the girl losing her ecclesiastical endorsement and not being able kind of getting kicked out again, I don't think it's good to analyze it from the outside because those are really personal issues, right? And we don't actually know what's been going on. So if something like that did happen, and let's say that she has been doing drugs and alcohol for the last year, then yeah, I feel terrible for her, right? And the church is really good actually about helping with situations like that and providing counseling and trying to help girls get through that. They actually do a great job with that. But the suspension from the school, she can come. It's always you can come back within a year, but just because that happened to her doesn't mean that she can just not live the standards that she agreed to live and not get kicked out of BYU. So I think that there is you have to show the right amount of love and you have to really show care for the person, but you also have to hold them responsible, right, for the stuff that they do. And I think that it's a delicate balance, and it's really easy to read the situation badly. It's really easy to say oh my gosh, she got raped and BYU kicked her out for getting raped, when really I'm almost 100% sure that that's not the full story, right? But they'll say it that way just to kind of paint BYU in a bad light. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I read about this actually in one of my journalism classes at Sac State earlier this semester in one of my news reporting classes. In these cases, you probably know about this a tiny bit more than I do. What is the penalty for the man involved in these cases? I'm sure it's a case-by-case basis, like I stated, but generally, is there what is the criminal punishment typically for that? Obviously, I'm sure that they lose their, ecclesiastical if they're part of the school as well, but what are typically the criminal charges that are brought upon them? Is it like any other, you would assume? What is it like in Utah?
Legally?
Yeah, legally.
Oh, I'm not sure. If it's for the girl or for the guy?
For the guy.
Oh, for the guy? Well, at least he'd be kicked out of the church for sure. You'd get excommunicated for doing anything close to that. Legally, I'm not actually sure. Honestly, I haven't seen any cases of that at BYU. That hasn't really happened at BYU at all, which I think is amazing because it happens at so many universities, right? You hear stories about this on every campus, except it's pretty rare at BYU just because of the standards that people live. So I'm not going to act like I know because I'm really not sure. But I think it's treated pretty similar to most other states in the United States.
Cool. That transitions into one final thing I wanted to talk about related to BYU, but just college in general, and that has to do with college affordability. I mentioned it a little bit with Kendrick last week on the show, as he also goes to a private university with Azusa Pacific down south. Cameron goes to BYU. BYU is actually a little less expensive on average than it is at Azusa. The average cost after financial aid at BYU is $13,000, while they have a 79% graduation rate. Every year, it's roughly around $5,300. That's as of 2016 to 17 for undergraduate tuition and fees. And so I don't know what the financial situation has been in your case, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there in the country at many colleges that go through rough times with student loan debt and everything else. And that leads into a story that I wanted to quickly say before we get into our thoughts on what can be done on college affordability, if anything. And that's this article that came out in the New York Times a couple days ago. A pledge to pay Morehouse College students' debt prompts elation, envy, and a host of questions. Days after a billionaire pledged to pay the collective student debt of the entire 2019 Morehouse College graduating class, euphoria was not the only emotion in the air. On Morehouse's Atlanta campus and beyond, administrators, students, and parents, and no shortage of philanthropy experts have spent the last few days wondering how Robert F. Smith, a Titan tech investor, would fulfill his promise to 396 graduates. The surprise announcement was both an extraordinary gift and a complicated one. At the end of a graduation celebration on Sunday night, Shaquille Lampley returned to his dorm room on campus, opened the computer, and stared at his student loan estimates. They totaled more than $200,000 in loans taken out by his mother, covering 6 years of school. It goes on to talk a little bit about, him specifically and his difficulties. But basically, this one guy, Robert F. Smith, ended up paying off millions, hundreds of millions in student loan debt for everyone involved. And it's just an absolutely amazing story that came out. This is something that a lot of kids go through, at universities across the nation is, student loan debt, college affordability. And like I said, I don't know how bad it is in your case, but overall, what's your thoughts of what can be done at either the state or national level when it comes to the issue of college affordability? Let me just get your thoughts on that.
So I think when a lot of the politicians promise free college, I think that's a super dumb idea. At least living in Chile too. In Chile, I would say a very large portion of the kids go to technical schools, right? So they'll graduate high school and go to a technical school, which I think is something they should do more here in the United States. I don't think that everybody should be going to college because it's not for everybody, right? There's a lot of technical schools and technical careers that you can do where you go for a year or two and you actually make a decent amount of money compared to what people that make graduating universities make. And I'm actually getting close. Really close. Yeah. Okay, my roommate needs to change. I'm gonna turn the camera off.
Oh, you're good. You're fine. You're fine.
How do I change the camera off? There it is. Okay. Anyways, what I was saying though is that I'm actually really proud to go to BYU because if you look at Forbes 2019 best value colleges, BYU is ranked number 1 for the best value out of any college. So, which is super cool. You should look it up. You should go read about it because BYU is amazing for affordability. So that's one of the big reasons why I came here is because I can get through college without debt, right? That's part of the reason I'm working is that I can make it through, pay for it myself without getting into debt. I do think that some people make dumb decisions when they go to college because they do stupid majors, right? If you're going to go $100,000 or $50,000 in debt and then you get a humanities major that you can't do anything with after, then why the heck are you screwing your life over doing that, right? So I think that honestly it's part of the educational system where they tell and they promise everybody if you go to college you can come out with a nice paying job, when really it's not like that. I think that it's worth it if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a doctor or an engineer, to go into a little bit of debt to go through school. But again, I don't think that everybody should be doing that, and I don't think you should be going into debt for a degree that's not going to get you a job after college.
Yeah, I would agree with that because with certain majors, like you said, you can't expect to be making a ton of money. And what I would also say though is I think that we do need. There's a couple of things I think that should be done on it, and I've said this on a couple of shows. One is I think that there should be more scholarship opportunities for people outside of high school. I think that should be something that should be offered. I think people should take more people should take the initiative to go out there and be more competitive when it comes to scholarships. because there's a good market for that, but I think it could also be expanded. But one thing I think that is at least a bigger issue that I've noticed at Sac State, I don't know how it is at BYU, I think there needs to be more resources that are put in actually helping students graduate in 4 years, because there's a lot of people out there who take 5-6 years to graduate, and part of that is because of work, part of that is because of them just not being willing to take the amount of classes necessary each semester, but another part of it is because there are some classes when it comes to related majors that are only offered maybe like once or twice, and they're outside of a time that may work for an individual to be able to make it to campus at that time, and so they have to wait an extra semester or more to get those classes. And also it's competitive because there's more only a certain amount of people that can get in those classes every semester. So I think there needs to be more resources put in specifically at hiring more professors on college campuses that can teach these subjects, that can teach these classes to help people graduate in those 4 years. And I also think that there's a big market out there right now in the private sector when it comes to online classes for people, and I think that that's going to be something that we'll see increase, and a lot more people will go down that route as well. But overall, what I think should be done is there needs to be more resources put towards more professors, helping students out in those areas, and then also when it comes to certain services on campus, maybe not charging them as much for certain services, as that can get pretty costly as well. That's just my thought.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with that. I think at least BYU has an online program that's getting better every year. And yeah, I think college is really expensive, at least for me too. That kind of happened because I'm staying spring and summer semester because they do 4 semesters a year here. And I'm staying spring and summer taking classes just so that I can graduate in 4 years, because if I was short on even one of my prereqs, then I wasn't going to be able to graduate in 4 years. It was going to take me 5, just because I was going to have to wait the way it all lined up for my junior year. So I'm staying all spring and summer for an extra 4 months and taking classes. But yeah, I think a lot of it just falls to the student though to make smart decisions. I do agree that lately, at least with a lot of the younger generations, that they're extending adolescence into a later age. I think that kids are so much less responsible than they should be, especially college age kids. I think that you should be making smart decisions about your future now and not relying on other people to do it for you, if that makes sense. I think a lot of people make dumb decisions when they come to college with debt and with paying for it and deciding what they want to do. And I think at least they should educate kids better on what decisions are smart. But I think that people should take responsibility for their lives,
Yeah, I agree with the personal responsibility, and you made a very good point towards the end there, which is what I was going to get into, is that I think it needs to be also taught to kids in high school of what reality is going to be like, in postgraduate of high school in those years. And I've said this on the show before. I am privileged. I acknowledge that I do come from I don't come from a wealthy family, but I come from, at least a somewhat middle-class family, and from caring parents who have taught me to save up my money even at a young age, to the point where I'm not set financially, but I'm set when it comes to college, and I'm fortunate in that respect. Some people aren't as fortunate and, come from poor families, and that's obviously a harder situation, a harder scenario to go through. But overall, I think at the end of the day, this is something that needs to be taught in high schools across the country, of what reality is going to be for them. If they go to a private college or if they go to another college, they need to expect what they're going to be getting into beforehand, because I think a lot of people just go into it thinking, oh, great, college 4 years, and they come out of it realizing that it's not that easy and it's not like that. So I think that just people need to be taught reality, basically.
Yeah, and I was really lucky too, because my mom and dad are honestly so smart. They're really, really smart people. And same with my sisters, because both my sisters have already been through college. And I was smart enough to accept their advice and listen to them when they told me what were smart things to do. And I think that more people need those opportunities to hear what they should do with their future, because I think a lot of kids just don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Cameron, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. This has been an awesome time. Definitely got to have you back in the future. We had some great conversations on a plethora of issues, and once again, thank you for taking time out of your night to come on. Yeah, we got to do something soon, man. When are you going to be back, you think?
Dude, I don't think I'm going to be back because I'm staying all spring and summer. I'm going to come back because my sister's getting married in August, so I'll probably be back for at least a week or two in August, but probably not long. I'm pretty much staying up here because I have a full-time job up here working for BYU, like I mentioned earlier, so I don't have a lot of time off. But
well, maybe we'll have to try to do something at that point. But yeah, once again, thank you for being on, man, and you have a great rest of your night.
Okay, you too. Thanks, dude.
All right, take care. And we'll be right back for the final part of the Liberty Hour right after this. Stay tuned, everyone.